Welcome back. Midterms are just a week away, and this year more people than ever will be voting with their wallets, and President Biden in mind. Yahoo Finance senior columnist Rick Newman has taken a close look at some of the positive under this administration. Hi, Rick. What should we expect?
Well, I think everybody knows inflation is a huge problem for President Biden. It's probably going to mean setbacks for his Democrats. But we typically assess a president's record around the time in the midterms. He's almost 2 years in. And there are some things that Biden has done pretty well that I list in an article that's on our site now. First, I think Biden has made the federal government stable and boring again, which I think is a good thing. And the way that I think about this is through trade. So if you think back to 2018 when President Trump launched his trade war against China and other countries, you and I were covering that here. And I mean, it was like on a weekly basis, markets would go up, markets would go down based on what tariff, the latest tariff Trump was threatening to impose. And then markets would change again based on whether the threat actually materialized. I mean, that went on all the way into 2020, and nobody knew how bad that was going to get. We just don't have that anymore. That does not exist anymore. I mean, Biden does have a trade policy that's emerging. He is getting tough on China, but it's happening in a kind of a consistent basis with no real surprises to the market. And then when we do get something new, then they step back and say, we're gonna see how that works. Just a couple of other things I think Biden has done well. I think the CHIPS Act is actually an important pivot in the direction of industrial policy, which free marketeers don't like, but every other country is doing it. So the United States has to get on board. The big Inflation Reduction Act, silly name for a bill that's really about climate investments and green energy investments, but that is going to pay dividends for probably decades. And I think Biden has also done a pretty good job with regard to the war on Ukraine. He has clearly, the United States is Ukraine's most steadfast and important ally. Some people think he should do more. Some people think he should do less, which means he's probably got it about right at this point. So I don't think this is going to help Biden and the Democrats on November 8th. It looks like they're going to lose the House and maybe the Senate, but I think he's doing okay on some of those things.
You mentioned Ukraine here, but also want to talk about China because that has the ability. There's some black swans potentially sitting in there. I've heard some rumblings about an invasion of Taiwan. These are just rumors. Could be years off. Could never happen. What is Biden's stance with China right now? How is that relationship evolving, and what do you think could happen?
Yeah, it's a really important topic, and it is evolving. So when Biden came into office, he left the Trump tariffs on Chinese imports in place. He removed tariffs on imports from some other allies in Europe, for example, but he kept those Trump tariffs in place. And then just earlier this month, I think we saw the biggest change in the Biden administration policy toward China, which is these very strict export controls on advanced chips, semiconductors, and American technology and know-how and expertise. So that indicates that Biden is going toe-to-toe with China. He does not want them to get the most advanced artificial intelligence, advanced weapons and things like that. And I think that this policy is going to stay in place for a long time, and it could outlast Biden. Tough on China is the new tough on Russia, and every administration is going to have to be at least as tough as the one before. So that is an important change. It's going to last.
Yeah, tough on China kind of emerged a little bit before Trump, but accelerated with him and probably a fixture for years to come. Really appreciate your insights here. Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman in studio.